That's us live now. So hi there, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. We're going to discuss the Palliative Care MSc Online program at Glasgow University. So with me, I have some of the team, the program academics. We've got Dr. Paul Keeley and Dr. Joanna Prentice. And we also have Administrator Emma Craddock. So we're going to let the academic team start first of all with a rundown of the program, what to expect, and we'll then let Emma introduce herself and what she does, which is answering all of the questions that the rest of us can't answer, basically. And then we'll go into the Q&A with the questions that were pre-submitted by students via email. I will say, if at any point a question occurs to you, you should have access to a Q&A button as part of this chat. So please do feel free to submit a question at any time. I'll keep an eye on that, and I will save up all of your questions for the end as well, and where we'll have a chance to go through them. So I think then, without further ado, I will pass on to yourselves, Paul and Joanna, to talk us through the program.
Yeah, hi, my name's Paul Keeley. Some of you have been in contact with me, and I know you from email, some I know you from real life. It's very exciting to actually begin to put the meat on the bones of the Masters. This is a new programme, and so Glasgow University has put forward the resources to allow us to take forward this Masters programme, which is unique in Scotland and pretty much unique in the UK in terms of its delivery, and given the focus that we have on this. So there are other similar programs, but most of these are face-to-face. This I think our program will allow professionals who are working within palliative care or in other specialties with an interest in palliative care to undertake study at the same time, much more conveniently as part of their working life as well. We've developed the program to be delivered entirely online. We've delivered a program which we think is broad-based and that will allow you to get a full grasp of palliative care as a whole, from a multidisciplinary perspective, and allowing all the elements of that to be incorporated into learning. The program begins in the first year with a set of courses. The first term being on themes in palliative care, which gives a broad overview of palliative care as a whole from a variety of perspectives, and I think that sets the tone for the rest of the program. The rest of the year is then focused on symptom control, and obviously that's traditionally been delivered with regard to cancer. We've tried to broaden that to ensure that there's a mix of both cancer and non-cancer advanced disease, and care for patients with advanced disease. So that the first year is intended to give a good grounding, a wide grounding in palliative care, both in the concepts that are to do with palliative care, but also symptom management. The second year then takes off in a different way and allows much broader knowledge to be imparted and to be engaged with. So we have modules then on advanced communication, on clinical leadership, and research methodology. So to allow a broader widening of your perspective. This is a program, and the final year is taken up with research itself and with the dissertation for those of you who will go on to the Masters. There are three exit points: postgraduate certificate after year one, postgraduate diploma after year two, and the Masters coming with the presentation and successful examination of a dissertation. There is formative and summative assessment throughout, so we are keen that we should give clear feedback and engage with students from beginning to end of the course. So there will be there's no big final assessment, apart from the dissertation. Obviously, that's a large summative assessment. But throughout, there is continuous ongoing assessment. But that shouldn't sound as frightening as it does. That's intended to ensure that your learning goals are being met. And this is adult learning. So this means that in many ways, you are the focus of your own learning. And not only that, but you have a responsibility for your own learning. But within that, we're here as academics to guide you within that and to ensure that you're meeting the goals that you've set yourself. So there's a framework within the course, but ultimately this is adult learning, and it allows you to develop in the way that you want to go. So you will go from small steps in the first year to ensuring that by the end of year 2, you feel that you are approaching the level of becoming an expert within palliative care, because that's what this program is designed to do. I think I've witted on enough. And the aim of this course is not for me to witter, but to engage with both my colleagues and with you as students. We are to become a community of engagement, if that's not too pretentious sounding. So I'm going to pass you on now to my colleague Joanna Prentice to give her view of the course.
Thanks there, Paul. Hi and welcome. My name's Joanna Prentice. I'm currently on maternity leave, but I thought it would be a really nice opportunity for you to actually see my face and kind of put a face to a name for when I start back, anticipated at the beginning of January next year. I think the course it's really exciting. I think the opportunity, COVID-19, had to get it in there somewhere, has given us probably and given you guys more confidence to undertake learning on a sort of online digital platform. I think it works very well. There will be plenty of opportunities to speak with us either on the phone or via Zoom to kind of discuss different aspects of the course as you go along. This will be a very important part of the course, as will the conversations around your peer. We've got quite an exciting mixture of people that are joining us in September. So I think that's going to give us a really broad perspective, as Paul said. And I think that's really very important in an ever-changing environment, especially in palliative care. And I think even in the last 6 months, there's been quite a lot of different changes, and I think it will give an opportunity for that. I think what I would highlight is the leadership and clinical effectiveness aspect. I think this is really important, and something in palliative care and within your own practice or within specialist palliative care that is really, really very vital. So I hope that this is going to be an opportunity. I think what I'd also say is we're very approachable, and we're also really keen for any feedback as we're going along about ways in which we can develop it. As Paul said, this is our first year of starting, so obviously we will be learning some of the logistics side of things, but we're very lucky to have a very organised team that will be able to help support us to deliver this. So I think those were the main things. I don't know if there was anything you wanted to pick up from that, Paul.
I need to get into the habit of unmuting. I think Joe's right. The ways of learning we've all changed very rapidly. In some ways, while I would really rather that COVID hadn't happened, certainly in terms of allowing more leisure to create the material that has been created for the program. It has changed things in 2 ways. The first is that we are much more attuned to communicating with each other in this way. It may be that we're all fed up with it, but I suspect that this is the way things are going to be from now on. The other point from that is that COVID, I think, will and the experience of coronavirus will be an almost live way of considering how palliative care has responded to it. So it's almost a case report in itself, a case study in itself that we can draw on. So certainly there'll be some material on coronavirus and the COVID epidemic that we'll draw upon, because I think it provides a kind of framework in which you can apply the principles of palliative care amongst other frameworks. I think Joe's right to emphasize the clinical leadership and advanced communication skills elements of the program. As I say, that we've structured it such that there's an introduction that's both familiar and gives a grounding in the first year, and the second year brings on of the program brings you on as a professional. And I think that's going to be our focus, that we're moving away from didactic teaching towards developing you as individuals and professionals. And moving the progression from the first to the second year is really important within that, in that you're beginning to develop to becoming independent in your ways of thinking and your ways of presenting, so that you are becoming an expert in the area.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for that introduction and overview, Paul and Joanna. I'll just maybe jump quickly now to Emma. If you wanted to just say hello and give an overview of the kinds of things that you can help with and how students can reach you if they have any questions, whether, I'm sure you can also forward on academic queries as well, but if there's something more of a practical nature.
Hi, so I'm Emma Craddock. I'm the postgraduate administrator for this program. Some of you have already been in touch with me. If you email the Palliative Care mailbox, I'm the person it comes through to, but you're also welcome always to contact me on my direct email, which will be on all the program documents, so it should be easy enough to find. At the moment, obviously, we're doing remote working, so email really is the best way to get in touch with me, but I always try and respond as swiftly as possible. But obviously, if I can't answer the question directly, then I will pass it on to whoever is best placed to do that, whether that is Paul and Joanna or whether that is other colleagues within the university. I'm really here to help with aspects, particularly at first when you're registering and you're enrolling on the course. If you have any difficulties there, please get in touch. Registration is going to open on the 12th of August. So those of you who have accepted offers that are conditional offers, if you try and meet the conditions on them, I think mainly it will just be uploading a document or two. As soon as possible, you can then start the registration process once you've accepted your unconditional offer, and then you'll have plenty of time just to get things going. Once you're fully registered, you'll be able to access various university platforms. And also you'll be able to access a Moodle induction. So the teaching is all done via Moodle, which is the virtual learning environment. And the digital education team, who are fantastic and support this program, they run an induction Moodle just to let you play around with it and get used to it and meet each other before the teaching starts. So that's well worth being registered for. And everyone who is registered by the time that starts will automatically be added to it. But as I say, if you encounter any sort of procedural issues, anything that's sort of student records, admin related, please just get in touch. If you encounter any technical issues during the course, post them. There'll be a forum on each course page, post them there, and the fantastic digital team will hopefully help you as soon as possible.
Perfect. Thanks so much for that, Emma. I feel like, well, we're about to jump into the Q&A section, but I do feel like quite a lot of our questions have been covered. But I will say, again, if you've got any questions occurring to you now as you watch, please do feel free to pop it in the Q&A box. And if you're watching this recorded, you're watching it later, then you can also feel free to send us an email with any questions, and we'll make sure that they get forwarded to you, to the relevant team. So to do that, you can just hit reply to the invitation email that we initially sent you with the Zoom link, or you can come into the Palliative Care inbox as well, and I'm sure Emma will be able to pick up on anything. So one of the questions that was submitted was about Moodle access, and I feel like we've covered that quite well. But another more general question came in, which wasn't specific to this program, but I thought it was quite relevant to maybe discuss here anyway, just in case anyone's facing similar issues. So one of the questions we had was about support for the hard of hearing while studying online. And I wondered if you might have any comments about general accessibility, just especially if people aren't so used to studying online, and what is in place to make sure that everyone can access the material easily.
I don't know, Joanna and Paul, do you want me to discuss that in the context of the university.
Yeah, given that that's a more general point about accessibility, then Emma, if you want to go ahead with that, that's great.
So what we would recommend for any students who have any sort of disability or learning difficulties, they should get in touch with the disability service as soon as possible. They'll do remote consultations with you, and the reason to do that is then the disability service will tell us exactly what we need to do as a program team to make sure that you have an accessible learning experience. And so that is one thing that's really important. The other thing is, if you're comfortable doing it, you can have discussions with the team and with the digital educationalists, because they're the ones that create a lot of the content, and they will make sure that what they're doing hopefully meets your specific needs. And the other thing though to note as well is we do try and make sure that the material on an online course like this comes in multiple different formats. So there might be a video, there might then be an audio only option, and there might then be a transcript as well. So you can access the same content in different formats if that is more suited to you, and that applies, you know, just if that's more convenient for you. But definitely if this is, if it is a disability issue, please do get in touch with the disability service, because they are absolutely the best place to help you and let us help you as well.
Thank you. And I feel like this is also possibly a good time to mention that we'll be uploading this recording of this webinar, but I'll also sort out the transcript as well, because I know the automatic ones can be interesting with different Scottish accents, especially just all over the place. But we'll have that available as well. So another question we had was about assessments, and you've already covered, Paul, that it will be sort of throughout the year, but I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the kind of assessments that the students will be undertaking and what kinds of things they can expect to be working towards.
Yeah, Jo and I wanted to work through, wanted assessment to work through a variety of means. So obviously there are very different learning styles that people have, and for the most part, each course will require a large piece of work to an extent, in that part of the aim of this course is, or this program is to make sure that we produce professionals who are able to produce a professional piece of work that would be suitable for publication. But we also acknowledge that there's rather more to being a palliative care professional than that, especially these days where the means of communication are much more variable. So that, or much more diverse. So we would expect that, or rather, we have made the program such that for each of the different courses throughout it, there will be a variety of assessments. These will not necessarily be that onerous. Some of them may be small, short, 10-minute video presentations or audio presentations that students will undertake, and that they'll get feedback on. One of the most important things, I think, is that we ensure that there's significant feedback on each piece that's submitted. So, as I say, there will be elements of summative and formative assessment. That's to say, pieces that will be graded, and that may be a traditional essay, but it may also be a discussion video or audio presentation. It may be something as diverse as producing a tweet to ensure that, or a short blog post that will ensure that the student has a variety of means of expressing themselves academically, and ensuring that they have got a grasp of the material that they've absorbed and analysed and critically appraised. So for each of the courses there will be a range of different assessments. There will be some traditional assessments within that, that's to say traditional essays, but not entirely. It will be geared largely towards the students' needs. The other point about that is that they'll also be geared towards the particular courses. So it would be very different, for instance, where you've got a much more reflective part of the program, such as themes in palliative care, where we would want there to be a much more reflective element to that, as opposed to the symptom control parts, which would be much more, if you like, traditionally academic. So each of the different programs and modules and courses and modules within the courses will have a different focus. So we've tried in the assessments that we've generated and have proposed to make sure that they fit the material that they're coming to. So there'll be a variety of assessments, and whilst they'll be rigorous, we will guide you through each of those. The point about assessment is that this shouldn't be daunting. It should be challenging, but the point of having Joe and me around and contactable as much as we hope we will be is to ensure that students feel guided throughout those assessments and not daunted by them. Joe, was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I think that's a kind of fair summary of the sorts of assessment. I guess the other thing that I would mention is that throughout most of the courses that are running, there will be a quite strong reflective element to reflect both on your clinical practice and learning. So I think that's going to be a very important part, and there is both formative and summative assessments so that you'll get a flavour for whether you're on the right track, because that can be what's very challenging, especially when you first start undertaking a master's, just to trying to get the level right. So again, we will provide support with you for that, and you'll also within your peer group get a lot of support from each other, and we would very much encourage you to speak together and kind of reflect on things, because I think that's going to be a very important core part of this course.
Perfect, thank you.
Given that master's level and postgraduate teaching is meant to be adult, self-directed and autonomous, that can feel a bit daunting in itself. The one thing I'd want to emphasize in conjunction with what Joe's just said is the fact that you are becoming a community of scholars. And that may sound very pretentious, but I mean it, that this truly should be a community, that we are hopefully sharing our expertise with you and allowing you to grow to where you want to be. But that means that that's collegiate, and that means that we are engaged with each other as a community. And communities have to do some work towards ensuring that there's engagement with each other. And that's what I want to do, that week in, week out, that we're engaging with each other, and if need to be on a daily basis, even in small ways, but we are becoming a community of scholars. And this is a journey throughout 2 or 3 years for you to becoming where you want to be.
That's great. Thank you very much. I think we have one more question, which probably kind of fits in with what we've just been discussing. Oh, hang on. Sorry, Peter. I've got another one coming up in a second, so I'll just put on hold. There we go. So the last question that we had was just about balancing the masters alongside full-time work in particular. And I know this is a newer one, so it might not have a precedence as such, but if you had any experience of advising students on working full-time alongside doing a master's.
I can talk a little bit about other programs where people in full-time work are balancing as well, if that might be helpful. So a lot of our ODL programs within the college are very much based on sort of clinical professionals in various ways, often holding down full-time jobs, often doing shift work. And generally, the beauty of the way these programs are set up is, although there may be some live seminars or live sessions, the majority of the content will not require you to attend at a specific time, so you can access it when does fit in for your schedule. Anything that is live is recorded, so if you can't attend, you can go back to it. And I think as well, the university takes great pains to design programs that are doable alongside full-time work. And obviously, Paul and Joanna are conscious of what's required for the jobs that a lot of the students will be doing, and will have taken that into account. And certainly it is something, you know, to keep in mind when you take on a program like this, but it's definitely very doable, and students are doing it across the college in various ways.
That's great. Thank you very much. Well, we're just coming up to the last couple of minutes. Did you have anything else at all that you wanted to add, Emma, Paul, or Joanna, before we finish up?
The main thing is how excited Joe and I are about this. It's been a long time in development. I mean, this is something that some of us in palliative care in the west of Scotland have wanted to do for a long time, and Joe and I have had since our appointment to conveners to this role have engaged in a lot of discussion, a lot of work to develop this. So we're very keen that that this should be a great success for everyone. I'd add to what Emma has said. We completely understand the balancing of work and study, because that's what we do ourselves. We're balancing our teaching and our engagement in the course with being full-time professionals, and I think it would be very difficult for us to be able to empathise with students if we were in some way in some academic high tower. We're not. We're jobbing clinicians who are delivering this, so we completely get where the students are coming from.
That's great. Well, in that case, we'll finish up for now, but I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone for coming along and attending, and also, of course, to our team for presenting. So thank you, Joanna, Paul and Emma. And we'll finish up there, but we'll send you on recordings, and any questions, feel free to shoot us an email. So yeah, thank you. Oh, I've got one. Oh, thank you. Just a thank you. Thank you very much. Right, we'll end it there. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.